You know, when we talk about corruption, usually it's all about the money, right? The bribes, the legal
Yeah,
loopholes.
the sort of mechanics of the bad act itself.
Exactly. But today, we're going deep on something else. Something quieter, almost invisible, that actually keeps corruption going.
The silence.
The silence, that persistent, pervasive silence from, well, for most people. We're jumping into part one of a really fascinating five-part series. It's investigative, educational,
It's from the American Anti-Corruption Institute, the AACI.
right, through their Power and Accountability publication. And the title says it all. Fear and Anti-Corruption, the silence that sustains corruption.
And our job today really is to unpack that core idea from the AACI. Their central thesis is, well, it's powerful. They argue that fear operates as the oxygen of corruption.
Oxygen.
Yeah, so we need to look past just simple greed,
Yeah.
and really get into the mechanics of why people stay silent, especially when citizens often know more than the investigators.
Okay, so that's the mission. And we're starting right where the ACI starts in part one, the anatomy of fear. Why citizens stay silent. They promise to break down three interconnected reasons for this silence.
Three dimensions of fear, essentially.
Right, because if we want accountability to actually work, we first need to understand why people often, well, refuse to participate.
Okay, yeah.
Let's unpack this core idea then.
So this concept, fear is oxygen, it's really insightful because it shifts things, doesn't it? It moves away from blaming individuals, like saying people are just morally weak.
Mm-hmm.
It points towards the system, the structure. Corruption doesn't just cause fear as a side effect.
Yeah.
The ACI argues it actively needs it to survive. It breathes it.
Needs it. How so?
Well, the fear is tangible, right? Fear of losing your job, your safety, maybe your reputation, maybe even worse. The ACI says this isn't just, an unfortunate consequence. It is the oxygen. It lets corruption grow, basically unchallenged.
That oxygen metaphor, I think it really works. It challenges how we usually think about it, because you see this pattern everywhere, don't you? People whisper, they see things.
They observe.
They observe, exactly. But they rarely take that final step. They don't act. And yeah, we usually just call that being weak or maybe cowardly.
And that's exactly the point the ACI pushes back on. Their analysis frames this silence very differently, not as weakness, but as a rational survival instinct.
Rational.
Yeah. They argue that if you're in a system, whether it's a company or a whole society, where experience constantly teaches you that honesty gets punished,
More than deceit.
often more severely than deceit, yes, then silence becomes the logical, self-preserving choice. It's rational.
Okay, wait. If we accept that premise, that silence is actually rational self-preservation, what does that mean for how we fight corruption? Are current efforts kind of missing the point?
The ACI suggests they absolutely are, or at least they're incomplete. The struggle isn't just about laws or catching a few bad apples. It's fundamentally a struggle to free people from fear.
Free them from fear.
Yes, because only when people feel safe enough, that's when accountability can become, as they put it, a lived reality. You can't expect heroic stands when the whole system seems designed to crush the hero.
That's a huge reframing. It shifts the focus, doesn't it, from just hunting the corrupt,
Protecting the honest.
protecting the honest. Okay, so if silence is this rational instinct shaped by fear, we need to understand the architecture of that fear.
Right.
How is it built? Where does it come from?
Right. And the AACI breaks this down really clearly. They call it the anatomy of fear. It's built on three specific pressures. They're interconnected.
Three pressures.
Yeah. Starting with the individual, moving to the institution, and then looking at the whole system.
Okay, let's start right there, at the personal level, the immediate pressure point.
That's the first dimension, personal vulnerability. This is basically the individual doing a cost-benefit analysis, weighing the risk versus the reward.
Of speaking out.
Exactly. When someone thinks about exposing wrongdoing, they have to realistically assess the chance of retaliation.
Yeah.
It's not abstract risk. It's fear of real, immediate, often devastating consequences.
And the source material, it lists some terrifyingly specific examples, doesn't it? Things that happen in these fear-driven environments.
It does, like getting fired instantly, targeted harassment campaigns, smear campaigns to ruin your reputation, your professional credibility.
Or even physical harm.
Or even threats of physical harm, yeah, to you or your family. It's serious.
Which leads to this incredibly powerful term the AACI uses to describe the fate of whistleblowers in many places.
They're remembered not as reformers, not as champions, but as casualties.
Casualties, that word just, it stops you, doesn't it?
It really does.
It says everything about the perceived risk. It's not just an inconvenience or a career hiccup. It's potentially professional death, or social death.
And when that's the likely outcome of doing the right thing, well, the incentive just vanishes, right?
Completely.
And that leads us right into the second dimension. We move beyond the individual's risk calculation now to the system itself.
The institutions.
Exactly, institutional indifference.
Yeah.
The AACI source points out that the problem often isn't that there are no laws promising protection. The problem is that those laws, those systems, they fail in practice.
So it's not just that the corrupt are strong, but the supposed protectors are weak? Or maybe compromised?
Precisely. How does this indifference show up? Well, through systemic failure, often linked to underfunding or lack of political will.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Think about whistleblower hotlines. Sometimes they lead straight to offices that are, well, let's just say compromised, connected to the very people being reported.
Oh, wow.
Or witness protection programs. They might exist on paper, but they lack the funding, the staff, the real commitment to actually be effective. They become symbolic gestures.
And even media exposés.
Even those. They might make a splash initially, but then political pressure, financial pressure, it mounts. The story fades before real change happens, before accountability truly takes hold.
So imagine you're an employee, you see corruption, and you see these mechanisms, the hotline, the law, the media, you see them consistently failing to protect people who speak out. What's the lesson there?
The lesson is brutal. The ACI source says indifferent institutions effectively train their employees that silence is fundamentally safer than integrity.
They train them. That's a powerful verb. Silence is safer than integrity.
Exactly. When you can't trust the system to protect you, that trust just collapses. And this failure of trust, it solidifies, becomes the third dimension, which is maybe the most insidious.
Okay, what's the third one?
Systemic impunity. This is where fear becomes really embedded, almost permanent. Because corruption isn't just tolerated anymore, it's reliably profitable and punishment is exceedingly rare.
So the whole system of justice is broken down. That's the point where it feels almost impossible to fight back.
It is incredibly difficult because in these environments of systemic impunity, the AACI notes this tragic inversion of values. Courage isn't seen as a virtue anymore.
What is it seen as?
Recklessness.
Recklessness. Just
Yeah.
foolishness to even try.
Precisely. The corrupt players know they'll probably get away with it, keep the profits. The honest witness knows they'll probably suffer if they speak up. So survival often means looking the other way.
Or worse.
Or worse, becoming complicit, just to survive. When there are no credible, predictable enforcement mechanisms, what should be a simple moral choice, telling the truth, it becomes this extreme, potentially life-altering personal risk.
That paints a really stark picture, and frankly a depressing one. The architecture of fear sounds highly efficient.
It is.
Which brings us to the crucial pivot in the AACI's analysis. If fear is the oxygen, how do we cut off the supply? If laws alone aren't enough, what does this all mean for actual anti-corruption reform?
It means we have to stop just tinkering around the edges, maybe adding another law here or there. The AACI argues societies have to focus first on dismantling this entire architecture of fear.
Tear it down.
Tear it down. Because until that safety net is built and people see that it's reliable, you won't get the widespread citizen engagement you need for any lasting change. Prosecutions alone won't do it.
So how do you build that safety net? The AACI outlines two critical steps, right? Two strategic shifts needed to move beyond just symbols.
Yes, two interconnected things. The first is absolutely foundational, the certainty of protection.
Certainty, not just possibility.
Exactly, certainty. Whistleblowers need legal shields, obviously. But crucially, that protection has to be visible. It needs to be robustly funded. It needs to work in daily practice, not just exist in some dusty law book.
So real resources, real commitment.
Absolutely. It requires a cultural shift, yes, but also a financial commitment.
Yeah.
You have to guarantee that the person speaking out can actually continue their life, their career safely. It needs to feel like an absolute guarantee.
Okay, that's the structural protection. What's the second step? You said it was cultural.
Yes, and it's just as vital. Honoring integrity.
Yeah.
It's not enough just to protect reformers. They need to be publicly recognized, celebrated, even socially honored.
Changing the narrative.
Exactly. The goal, as the AACI puts it, is making sure that fear loses power when courage gains status. We have to actively rewrite that story of the whistleblower from casualty
To champion.
to champion, because fear works through shame, through isolation. If society starts publicly affirming and rewarding integrity, that directly counteracts the fear.
Right. That makes sense.
And this brings us to what I think is the ethical core of the ACI's argument. They say the true test of any anti-corruption framework isn't really how well it deters the corruption.
What is it then?
It's how robustly and consistently it protects the honest.
How it protects the honest, that's the real benchmark.
Not the benchmark. And if governments ignore that reality, if they keep focusing only on punishing the bad guys while leaving the good guys exposed.
They'll never get the information they need.
Exactly. People simply won't risk everything for a system that offers them nothing but danger in return. It's just not rational.
So the silence that sustains corruption, it's man-made. It's a structure we built based on risks and rewards we
So it means it can be undone. Because we designed those systems, we can redesign them.
That feels like the hopeful takeaway from this first part of the series, doesn't it? The whole fight isn't just about corruption. It's really a struggle to free people from fear.
Dismantle the fear, restore accountability. That's the message.
And that foundation is crucial for the rest of this AACI series, I imagine.
Absolutely. Part 2, for instance, dives into why institutions themselves often act cowardly, the paralysis in leadership. Part 3 gets really practical, challenging governments on what real, measurable protection actually looks like.
And then?
Parts 4 and 5 look at how you build fearless organizations, how you cultivate trust, and ultimately why protecting moral courage should be seen as maybe the ultimate public good.
Okay, lots more to dig into there, but let's leave our listeners with this final thought for today, connecting back to those solutions. If we agree with the AACI that the real measure is how well we protect the honest, how do we budget for that? Seriously, what line item in a government budget or a company policy needs to suddenly grow, say, 500% to prove we're serious about shifting from treating integrity as recklessness
to treating it as our greatest public asset?
Exactly. What would that look like in practice? Something to think about.
Indeed. And just a reminder to everyone listening, this deep dive has been using source material from the American Anti-Corruption Institute's 5-part investigative series. It was produced using NotebookLM, all with the goal of promoting global awareness and education in corruption prevention.
Thank you for joining us for the deep dive.
2025, the American Anti-Corruption Institute, AACI, all rights reserved.